The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
The Washington Nationals just stunned the baseball world, and they have fired President of Baseball Ops Mike Rizzo and manager Davey Martinez.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
July 6, 2025 is a day that Nationals fans will remember forever, and really baseball fans, because again, my first thought when the Nationals fired the GM and president of baseball ops since 2009, Mike Rizzo, was, why right now? Why would the Nationals do this right now? You are 1 week away from making the number one overall pick, and this team is not very good. But let's just kind of make sense of the timing of this for right now. Because the first thing, again, that we were all thinking, that Nationals fans were thinking, was that, okay, Davey Martinez, who was also fired, that kind of makes sense. The Nationals have been a bad team. He made some comments a few weeks ago and kind of blamed the players, and rather than falling on the sword himself, and took the backs of his coaching staff. And that's kind of when a lot of people were saying, this is not going to last after this season. Well, the learners, they decided to make a change today. We'll have that Davey Martinez discussion later on in the week ahead, because there's a lot to break down and really just the future of the Nationals in general. But I really want to hone in on Mike Rizzo in this move, because this is the move that, quite frankly, the timing of it makes no sense. It's jarring. No one expected the guy to make the number one overall pick, and forget the past for a second. Forget that the Nationals have been a bad team and a poorly run organization since 2020. Forget that for a second. What if I told you in your profession that you were going to be making a huge decision that's going to be changing the direction of your franchise, the direction of your business in just 1 week, and you have been working all year long to make that selection and make that pick and make that budget or whatever it is? And I tell you a week before, you know what? You're not going to make that pick. That's what just happened with Mike Rizzo. And getting into it, Mike Rizzo, I have said it all along. Mike Rizzo is a good GM. But let's be honest. He is not a small market GM, of which the Nationals have been run like the last few seasons. The Nationals have been run from ownership like they are a small market team. Newsflash, learners, this is not a small market. This is Washington, D.C. This is a top 10 sports market, whichever way that you look at it. You have spent big money before. Mike Rizzo is not a draft and develop guy. Mike Rizzo would not do well in Tampa Bay. Mike Rizzo would not do well in Pittsburgh. Mike Rizzo would not do well with the Rockies. He would not do well drafting and developing. It's not his thing. He is a big market GM. Unfortunately for Mike Rizzo, we have not had a big market checkbook for the last few seasons here. So Mike Rizzo has not been able to do what he does best. When I think of Mike Rizzo and what he has done tremendously over the years is signing big free agents, whether it be guys like Max Scherzer, Patrick Corbin, who helped us win a World Series, guys making moves and trading Juan Soto and getting back James Wood and Mackenzie Gore and C.J. Abrams, Harleen Susanna. That trade is something that will live with this fan base for the rest of time. But I go back to who really is at fault here, and really what the damage, and really who has done that damage, and who has done that damage right now is the ownership group. But to kind of reel this conversation back in, the timing of this is jarring right now. Who expected, after you just got your you just got your teeth kicked in by the Boston Red Sox, who are not a very good team. They're not a very well-run organization at this point. They've got a great farm system, but you just got swept. And it was not a very pretty series. But no one was clamoring for Mike Rizzo to be fired at this point. No one was clamoring for there to be a complete change in this front office, in which, by the way, Mike Rizzo has been here since 2009. It's not like you're moving off someone who has a track record these past 5 seasons where you're like, he's a bad GM. It's been 15, 16 seasons at this point in time with Rizzo. This move is stunning, to say the least. And right now, with where the Nationals are, you have to think to yourself, what is the direction of this organization? Because as far as I'm concerned, you guys obviously don't know this. I was 10 years old when Mike Rizzo was hired as a GM. I've been a baseball fan since I was a young kid. But really, no one knows a GM when you're 8 years old. All I've known is Mike Rizzo and Mike Rizzo being in charge of the Washington Nationals. Now you're going to have a change of direction, which, by the way, the Nationals have made a decision as far as who their interim GM is. It's Mike DeBartolo, who is the assistant GM. He will serve as the interim GM for the Nationals. We will get into him much later on in this week, likely around Wednesday or Thursday, just kind of the direction of this front office. But I need to go back to the timing of this. Maybe you can tweet at me at RyanClaire11. Make this timing make sense. You are 1 week away from just a huge decision that we just talked about this past week, by the way, that could totally change the trajectory of this organization. You have the number 1 overall pick. You have to hit a home run with this pick. That's what we were talking about. What we did not talk about was that Mike Rizzo might not have that opportunity to make that change, to have that guy, whether it be Ethan Holiday or Cade Anderson. The work that has been done on this draft and on this trade deadline even could be good as gone. We don't really know who runs the draft. It has been widely speculated that it is Brad Ciolek, formerly of the Baltimore Orioles, who he ran the draft there for them as well. But right now, with where the Nationals are going, how do you feel about the direction of this team? Because the only direction that we have known for the past 15 years, and really the only success that the Washington Nationals have had, is Mike Rizzo under the GM. But I must say this. I do think this move is a good one. I do think that after this season, I was ready for fresh leadership. I was ready for a fresh approach into free agency, into making trades, and into developing guys, because those have been some real big issues of mine these past few seasons. And the Lerner ownership group, they decided today, July 6, 2025, after 15 plus years as our president of baseball operations, Mike Rizzo is no more. 1 week away from making that number 1 overall pick, which he has not done since selecting Bryce Harper back in 2010. They are not giving him that opportunity. And the Lerner family, they have moved on. What a jarring decision from the timing aspect of this, from the middle of the season. And quite frankly, the timing of this will never make sense to me. But here's what does make sense to me. What has gone wrong? And I will say, as we mentioned a few minutes ago, this is the correct decision. The timing of it doesn't really make sense.
Check your bank account and wonder where'd all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment. It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing your money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay.
Day one of Summer League. was exactly what you should have expected.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz.
Let's start with Ace Bailey, because that's where the headlines are. That's where the spotlights are. We're in it, like ESPN's leading with it. We've got our guy that everyone's going to watch, and frankly feels like people are rooting for it to go wrong, not right, but maybe that's just my own personal Jazz bias. I thought he was exactly what I would have thought he was. He ended 3 of 13. He had 8 points. He had 7 rebounds. He had an assist. He had the worst plus-minus of anyone in the game other than Armstrong of Philadelphia. It's kind of what I thought. He's crazy long, athletic, active, exuberant. Exactly what you expect. If you watched him at Rutgers, this is what you were going to probably see. And what I mean by that is you have a world-class athlete with an ill-refined game whose greatest strength is currently his greatest weakness, and who has to learn how to play in a different fashion. Scored about 35 points a game or something crazy in high school. Went to Rutgers, didn't play with a great team. If you talk to people around Ace Bailey about Rutgers, you say, well, if you watch him in his first 5 games of the year, he definitely tries to incorporate everyone. He moves the ball, he does this, and then after that, it's like, no, you have to shoot. There's a story of Ron Harper kind of pulling him aside and being like, no, on this roster with these players, you've got to shoot. And that's still there. He jumps off the stage, off the floor. His length, his body, it's just so obvious that he is the one that has the potential. His jumping is ridiculous. There was a rebound where he just went up 3 feet, 4 feet higher than everyone else to grab the rebound on a free throw. Maybe he's playing harder than everyone on a free throw also, but the fact that he can do that. There was another play, again, where everyone had one level of jump and athleticism, and Ace Bailey's length was just a different piece. And then there's the much talked about block. If you've seen it, it's pretty awesome. Guys driving the basket, has pretty decent separation, tries to put it up, and Bailey spikes it off the glass. And then there was terrible shot selection in the second half. As he got tired, and I thought guys were really tired in this game. It was very physical, very chippy. There was lots of kind of up and down frantic action, and I thought guys got tired. As Bailey got tired, I thought he regressed back probably to kind of what he knows. He lacks the ability to make plays off the dribble. So with that right now, and where he is as a player, and the inability to make plays off the dribble, means that then his shot window, which when a moment ago I said his strength is the same as his weakness. His strength is that he can get a shot off anytime he wants. And his weakness is he can get off a shot anytime he wants. His length is that great that he can just get a shot off. The problem is he can just get a shot off. So as he gets tired and he lacks the ball handling skills to maybe make the plays that he needs to make to clear and get something else, we end up with a fadeaway, one step, quick release, jumper. The other one is that the Jazz are working very hard offensively on playing 0.5 basketball, where instead of being set play and everything being execution and waiting till the guy comes free, get the ball, drive, pass, or shoot within 0.5 seconds. So if you're Ace Bailey and you're playing 0.5 basketball, drive is not a great option because you're not a super good ball handler yet. Pass is not a natural reaction. And if you're not entirely sure where everyone is, because you haven't played with them before, hard, so you shoot. So none of that is surprising. His exuberance and energy was terrific. And his natural, just like God-given skills are incredible. And the other play I was thinking of is a left-hand drive, pull up, free throw line, rise up above everyone else and hit the jumper. And that's honestly where some of the comparisons I think are nuts of Tracy McGrady or, Kevin Durant type stuff, but was Tracy McGrady, Kevin Durant type stuff. So it's there. And then the other part of it is, all indications are he's been terrific, despite all the noise. We also got to see Kyle. We got to see Isaiah. We got to see Cody. And we got to see Bryce Sensabaugh play and Walt Clayton. So let me jump in on a few of those. I want to start with Cody. I thought Kyle was the most interesting. So Cody was noticeably stronger. And I got to say, Cody's dad was there with his awesome beard. And if you look at Cody's dad and you look at Cody's brother, it is hard to believe that Cody is not going to fill out. Maybe he's going to be the one in the family who never does. And the lower body is still spindly. The upper body is much bigger. But he was far more aggressive, played off contact far more. Shot didn't look dramatically different. I think he finished 2 of 6 from 3, 5 of 12 overall. But 5 rebounds was dramatically different. 2 of them on the offensive end, a steal, a block. It was an activity level and a confidence in conducting himself on the floor that was different. There's a play where he goes to the basket and tries to dunk it. He certainly wasn't doing that before. And his handle does need to improve. He's got a little bit of the same thing going on here where his handle's just not great. So when he gets the ball in the corner, his choice is kind of to shoot. And so as he improves that should open up some other things. But I thought we saw, the work. He's talked about he's eating 5,000 calories a day. He's gained 22 pounds. And I thought it was clear he had. Lower body weight's hard to see sometimes. And it doesn't look as obvious that he has that. But you look at his dad, who's just such a big man. You look at his brother, it's hard to believe that Cody's not going to have a massive growth of size and strength as he moves into adulthood. I mean, he's still 19. So we'll see whether that's the case. But I thought that of all of the guys yesterday, the one that was the most encouraging to me and looked different than he did before was Cody Williams. I know, I've read Twitter too. That's not who anyone's talking about. But I'm just telling you my thought, and I'll explain why on the other guys here in a second. The one guy who did something that I hadn't seen him do before, that I wasn't aware, was Cody Williams was playing a different game than I saw out of the other guys who I'd seen before.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Alabama just continues to roll on. They get the commitment from Edwards, and it was never in doubt. I mean, Jimmy, it just wasn't an issue. I mean, after the announcement, it was basically put out there that, hey, he committed when he visited back the weekend of June 6th, and it should have been a tip that he didn't visit anywhere else. And in fact, what was kind of weird, the team that finished second is Oregon, a team he never even visited.
He never even went out there. Yeah, he canceled his visits after Alabama, which is always, it's not so much inside info. I know everybody wants the scoop from inside, but so much of the time when it comes down to figuring out this stuff is track the visits. The visits mean so much. And when it was thought that Alabama was probably the favorite, and then he goes on the Alabama visit and he cancels all the others, that's sort of like all you really need to know about that situation. He obviously loved Alabama. Alabama loved him. And then Jet Washington ends up somewhere else, which is again all you need to know. I go this far with Jariah Edwards is of all of Alabama's 5 stars. There's now 5 of them in this class, which is an amazing number. 5 stars. I think Edwards is the best. Not all 5 stars are created equal. If I had to pick one of the 5 to bet on in terms of a guy that I feel will live up to that 5th star, it's Edwards for me. I think he's the best player in this class so far. And not to take anything away from C.D. Morgan and Xavier Griffin and Edmonds and Crowell. But I think Jaira Edwards is the best of all the 5 stars.
I'm right there with you. I believe that to be the case too. Cedarian Morgan for me is right there. I mean, literally like right there. But it's Jiraiya's probably the most ready to contribute. Like if he had to contribute this year, I think he could play this year. I think Cedarian is the kind of guy who might need just a little polishing. I mean, not a lot, but a little. And Crowell, again, we've got to remember, if he were here this year, it would be his junior year. So it's not going to shock me if he doesn't come in and just light the world on fire immediately. He might.
It's fair to doubt reclass. He's a reclass. I'm kind of critical of the reclass. I think too many kids reclassify. I think it's fair to say, well, he's skipping a year of critical development. This is a developmental sport. So I think it's fair to have a question about that. That doesn't mean you shouldn't take him or he shouldn't be ranked where he's ranked. It's just fair to question that. Xavier Griffin, it's not so much a question, but with Xavier Griffin, it's like, okay, is he going to be an edge guy or is he going to be inside? Or what you don't hope is that he ends up being some sort of a tweener, that there's not a perfect spot. You know, it's guys that sometimes project at 2 spots. You're like, well, wouldn't you kind of prefer if he was completely obviously one guy or another? Edmonds, you know, at corner, he's fantastic. We've just seen 5-star DBs not be great. I mean, I think that's one position where there has been some 5-star bust.
That's fair. I mean, even Surtain had some troubles initially. Not a lot, but he had some. And then I think Edwards is going to play a position where his mistakes probably won't show up as much either, but his big plays will be huge. You know, a lot of times you pick on cornerbacks if they bust something. You don't kill safeties as much, it feels like. I don't know why that is, but at the same time, I mean, cornerbacks get more love than safeties generally too, so I guess that sort of comes with the territory. But
isn't it true that in the same class as Surtain was 5-star Josh Jobe, who was a good player, even played some pro football, but I don't know that Josh Jobe ever proved that he's certainly not in Surtain's class of player.
I've got to go back and look and see if Jobe was a 5. I don't remember him.
You don't remember him being a 5? I could be wrong.
So regardless, a couple of things, you know, who the more I've thought about this and watched some of Jaira Edwards' film, the more the comparison to me is Landon Collins.
Oh, I like it.
And I think that's where I'm going with this. And I would love to have another Landon Collins, by the way.
Oh.
The other thing that it just never dawned on me, and again, call me an idiot if you already knew this and were thinking this had something to do with it. But he's got 2 dudes already on the team in Cam Howard and Nakai Green-Hill, who came from that same high school. It just didn't register with me for whatever reason, because, you know, again, I didn't get to follow those 2 young men as freshmen, you know, because we weren't recruited. We got those in the transfer portal. So when they come to me in the transfer portal, I typically don't even think about their high school anymore because I wasn't tracking it. So I think that's interesting, because that was one thing that a lot of Auburn people were sort of holding up, like, hey, we have a lot of St. Francis guys here. Maybe that'll help us. And they also have another St. Francis dude committed on their current commit list. And they thought that would help them. Well, we got 2 St. Francis dudes on our team already.
It's a powerhouse program.
Yeah.
I mean, boy, they just, that's a not a pipeline necessarily Tuscaloosa, although Alabama's gotten a lot of guys from there, but St. Francis just annually produces dudes. I mean, it's got to be one of the most high producers of the 4- and 5-star talent on the East Coast.
By the way, I like this this comment here. It says, finally, the emergency pod. We've been waiting on this one. And his avatar is an elephant holding a missile. I sort of dig that. I mean, I wonder where you get that.
That's a scary elephant.
I said it's a
You don't see
very
too many missile firing elephants.
no. They're
Kinda
very
rare.
rare. There's 2 left. They're at the San Diego Zoo, and they can't get them to reproduce. But so talk more about Jeriah Edwards and what you think this means, and we'll wrap that up, and then I want to talk about a player's father I met yesterday, randomly, and then I want to talk about what's next for Alabama in the next segment.
Well, with Edwards, in terms of what you're getting with Edwards, I like Luke's Landon Collins in the sense that Edwards is at his absolute best in the box. And that's where Collins did his best work. I mean, was in the box as a physical presence, as a great tackler, as a guy that kind of closed off the short middle, a guy that would fly up and run defense, but a guy that also had some big-time speed on the back end, where I was completely sold watching Edwards' film to lead me to the point where I say Edwards is the best of these 5 stars, is this. He's awesome in the box. And I think to myself watching the tape, I'm still not 100% sure about the coverage. But when they show him in coverage on his huddle tape, he's playing nickel corner. He's not even doing the deep center field thing. He's playing man nickel corner coverage on his huddle tape a lot. And I'm like, oh, man, if he's that good in the box and then has some cornerback in the toolbox, this kid is something. And
Okay.
and then you watch the physical, then you watch just the tape of him running around. And he's like, this kid's some kind of freak.
Syracuse football getting Calvin Russell is the biggest recruiting win over the past 20 plus years, and maybe ever.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Calvin Russell committed to Syracuse football last night, a 5-star wide receiver, 6'5", 190 pounds. How did you feel? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section below, because to me, it's surreal. I'm going to date myself. So I was born April 5th, 2002. So I'm only 23 years old. I'm a young guy. Can't hide that. Can't change that. Actually, one day it will change. I will no longer be young one day. But I'm young for now. This is the best or highest ranked Syracuse football recruit of my lifetime. I'm not joking. If you go on 24/7 Sports and you check out the all-time best Syracuse football commits, you have to go back to 2001 to find a higher ranked commit than Calvin Russell last night. And that's Johnny Morant. I believe that's in the class of 2001. So that's a year before I was born. Let that sink in for a moment. That is how long it has been. This is a program. Look, there's a reason why a lot of us may be feeling the same way. If you're an outsider checking out this podcast, maybe you are a Michigan fan that lost out to Calvin Russell last night. Maybe now you have a better idea of why myself and maybe a lot of other Syracuse fans are reacting this way, because this has not happened in over 20 years. For a lot of other programs, every year they'll get a 5-star commit. This does not happen with Syracuse. This is not normal. It is an unbelievable feeling, and you can't help but feel optimistic. You can't. You kind of have to be optimistic about this and think about the future of Syracuse football. I want to talk about why Calvin Russell picked Syracuse without going too in-depth, honestly, on the quotes, because I can summarize it with one name. He committed to Syracuse because of Fran Brown. This has been a commitment that we have been eyeing for a very long time. Actually, around this time last year, we started talking about him briefly on the podcast. Hey, Calvin Russell, Syracuse is standing out early in his recruitment. Naturally, we talked about it here on this podcast. I didn't think much was going to come of it. I thought it was an example of how head coach Fran Brown is starting to turn the tide. But this is a 5-star wide receiver. This is a top 5 overall wide receiver in the country. This is someone on 24/7 Sports that's rated 21st overall. You're telling me he's going to pick Syracuse football over any school he wants in the country? He can go anywhere. Think about his top 4. Obviously, Syracuse won. Who came in second? University of Michigan. What did the University of Michigan do a couple years ago? That's right. They won the national championship. What have they done over the past few seasons? Beat Ohio State. Oh, by the way, that team won the national title last year. How about Oregon? Oregon, the school that stole Messiah Hampton, our prodigal son, from us. How about Florida State? I know they had a bad year last year. Do you know what they did the year before? They went undefeated and probably should have been in the college football playoff. That was the top 4. But it goes beyond that. He could have chosen his hometown team, the Miami Hurricanes. They get big recruits all the time. They're historically one of the better college football programs ever. Could have gone University of Florida. Had an offer from Alabama. Could have joined Bill Belichick and played for him at North Carolina. He chose Syracuse. And again, this has been a year in the making. How did this all come to be? It was about a year ago. And there was an article from 24/7 Sports about how Syracuse was one of the early contenders, early front runners for one of the best players in the country, a wide receiver from South Florida, Calvin Russell. And like I said, I mentioned all the schools that were in on him. Did not think much was going to come of it. But Syracuse is in a new age, maybe. They could be. Comment in the comments section below. Have they awoken? Has the sleeping giant awoken? Comment in the comments section below here. And throughout the past year or so, there's been a lot of schools that have come in and out of Calvin Russell's recruitment. Actually, for a while, it seemed to be a 2-horse race. And Syracuse was one of those schools. It was between Syracuse and his hometown team, the Miami Hurricanes. In fact, Calvin Russell was in the JMA Wireless Dome when Syracuse beat Miami at the end of the regular season. And over the course of 13 months, Calvin Russell unofficially visited Syracuse 4 times. So this has been something that has been building over the past year plus. Syracuse was in on him very early on in his recruitment, and they stayed with him. And it's one thing to show early interest in the player, but you also need to make sure that that player is showing interest in you, because this is a marriage here. This is not, hey, you're coming to Syracuse and you're not going to have a choice. No. He's got to also want you. Why did he want Syracuse? Why did he always keep Syracuse at the forefront or the back of his mind? Well, I'm going to pull up a quote from last night and what he said. This is from Calvin Russell, and I'm going to put it up on screen right now, but I will still read it out to you all who are listening this on Apple or Spotify, any free platform that you get your podcasts. Here it is, okay? I'm not going to lie. I made my decision a couple of days ago, Russell said. Michigan came close, but Coach Fran, the individual he is, how he was raised, I feel it. How he carries himself, The men I was raised around are similar to him. That's why I want to be there. Russell confirmed that he has officially shut down his recruitment and fully intends to sign with Syracuse on National Signing Day. Quote, "It's over. I'm done. There will be nothing else going on with my recruitment. I'm done." I guess we'll get to that stage later on here in the podcast, talking about how we still have a lot of time between now and signing day, and how technically my bet with Locked On Portal podcast host Calvin Russell, Brian Smith, is still on hold about the steak dinner, because technically the bet was about him signing with Syracuse, not a verbal commitment, because verbal commitments can happen anytime. So that's why we made the bet that he has to sign on signing day, by the way. But that's the point. The point of the quote was Fran Brown. Now, it doesn't mean that this was a lock. In fact, I really didn't think they were going to get him. I'll be honest with you. I try to be optimistic. I did not think that Syracuse was going to get him, because until Syracuse actually showed they could get a guy like him, I really wasn't going to believe it. Again, it had not happened since 2001. Why am I supposed to believe that this is going to be any different? Well, Fran Brown. That's why. The head coach of Syracuse football, who in his first season, we talked about on the podcast, quite literally might have had the greatest first season in Syracuse football history by a head coach. Quite literally. He goes 9-3 in the regular season, wins a bowl game, and goes 10-3. Not many other coaches in the history of Syracuse have won 10 games in their first season. And he's one of the best recruiters in the nation. But over the course of 13 months, he gets Calvin Russell unofficially on campus 4 times. He also gets him on campus, this is included, for the Syracuse spring game. When that happened, that was probably the most optimistic I felt throughout this whole process, that Syracuse might have had a chance at getting Calvin Russell, because he could have gone to a lot of other spring games. But he chose to go to Syracuse's spring game. And it seemed like this was maybe going to happen. And then the official visits start coming in. And Calvin Russell does not take an official visit to Syracuse football. Now, for those that don't understand the difference between an official visit and an unofficial visit, an unofficial visit is you're going up to Syracuse, or you're going up to any other school and you're paying for it. That's what it is. An official visit, the school is paying you to come. They're paying you. They're taking care of everything. Food, amenities, whatever it is, that's the difference. So Calvin Russell not coming on campus for an official visit. I know we had on Mike McAllister, 24/7 Sports Syracuse Insider, on the podcast, and he said it might not necessarily be the worst thing in the world because he's been on campus so much. I still took it as a bad sign, because I'm looking at the list right now on 24/7 Sports as where Calvin Russell actually looked, or where he went on official visits here. He visited University of Florida on May 16th, LSU on May 30th, Oregon on June 6th, Miami on June 13th, Florida State on June 15th, and Michigan on June 20th. No mention of Syracuse to an official visit. Didn't look good. I'll be honest with you. A few weeks ago, there was a prediction that was logged in by On3 Steven Wagner that said that LSU was going to probably get him. And it was followed up by a tweet from Brian Smith saying, don't be surprised if he chooses LSU. This is around the time that it seemed like Miami was falling out of the race, which they did. His hometown team just, I don't know what happened, but he fell out of the race. Then Michigan happens. And that was, I think, the pick by a lot of people. It was the safe pick. He goes to Michigan. He's another 5-star player that they get. They seem to get one pretty much every year. If I'm mistaken, maybe every couple of years, whatever it is. I don't follow Michigan recruiting too far in depth, but what I do know is that if you win a national championship, that means you're getting elite players out of high school. And Michigan's attractive. I'm not going to lie. I don't think any Syracuse fan would lie and tell you that Michigan isn't one of the best programs you can go to as a 5-star player. You're a wide receiver. You got Bryce Underwood, the number 1 player in the country that's going to be there. Oh, and you want to play basketball too? We can also talk about that in other podcasts because Calvin Russell's also a basketball player. He will be playing for Syracuse basketball. You can play for Michigan basketball. You can play for Dusty May, who just had a great first season over at Michigan. It seemed like I didn't want to get my hopes up last night. I really didn't. Because I did not think that this was really going. Is he really going to pick Syracuse? Or are we going to have to do a podcast all together saying, hey, I know they didn't get him, but they did all the right things. They got in on him early. And sometimes you just can't control it. And you have to give props to Fran Brown for having Syracuse in the final two. Because that also has not happened, I think, for quite a while, where Syracuse actually has a legitimate chance in the final two to get a 5-star wide receiver. But guess what? We don't have to live in that world because Calvin Russell verbally committed to Syracuse football last night. It has been a year process in the making. I am overjoyed. I am thrilled.
Check your bank account and wonder where'd all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment. It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing your money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast.
Nuggets trade for Jonas Valanciunas. Hooray! They got the backup center. It's all fixed. Everything's great.
Huge.
Then the European reports start coming out. And I'm gonna. Do you have the pronunciation? I never can pronounce this name right.
You know what? I got in trouble on the other show for butchering the pronunciation, and they called me a racist white American. So, like,
oh, I see. The Greek fans have found you. That's why that show is good.
Let's go Panathinaikos.
Panathinaikos. I'm gonna call it PBC.
Cool. I'm gonna call it Greece.
Basketball club. So we're gonna just call it PBC.
Cool.
PBC wants Jonas, and they wanted him last year, and he has made it clear through his people that he was going to go and he was going to sign with them, and that's what he was going to do. But you can't do that if you're under contract to an NBA team. If you ask why can't you do that to an NBA team, it's because you need something called a FIBA letter of clearance. Shout out to Keith Smith, who had a really great breakdown about this on the Sasha Vazenko situation last year. FIBA's got to work with the NBA, and the NBA's got to work with FIBA, and they all want to be basketball organizations that work together. And in order for that to happen, you have to have things like, hey, our guys can't just leave their contracts dead and go play for your clubs. And so you have to get that FIBA letter of clearance. Otherwise, you can't legally participate in these games. So you need the Nuggets in order to be able to buy you out, waive you, provide that letter of clearance so that you can go ahead and accept what sounds like a very lovely life in Athens. It sounds like a very lovely life. The beaches are south of there, I learned today, and they do look pristine. So that's all kind of hanging out there. Stein's reporting like he's going to go. No one really knows. Then it comes out the Nuggets are going to go ahead and go through the trade. They're going to complete the trade. That paperwork has still not been done because I think that they're still trying to I think they don't want to do the deal and then I think they want to resolve the situation and then do the deal. Also, probably hard to do a physical on Jonas Valanciunas when he's in Lithuania. Yeah. So that's kind of a problem because he's over there for Eurobasket. So that's an issue for them. For getting this deal done. Now, on Sunday, Shams Charania reported what had been indicated to Steiner previously, which is that the Nuggets are not planning on letting him out of his contract. If I do want to run down these scenarios. If the Nuggets were to just waive him, they would eat the $10 million on his deal. They can waive the non-guaranteed on the next season, but they would just eat the $10 million for this year.
Non-starter. That's not
non-starter. Yeah. That would just be dead cap space. They're not going to do that. Yeah. Jonas can agree to give up the $10 million this year, and the Nuggets can agree to let him out, and then all of that money comes off the cap. If they agreed to 1 year versus 9 given up, then $1 million would go on the Nuggets cap, etc. So those are kind of the options for Jonas to get out. if the Nuggets decide to not pursue any of these options, they can just be like, nope, we expect you to honor your contract. And there's not a lot that Jonas can do. This is about hard leverage, which the Nuggets have, versus soft leverage, which Jonas has. And that's kind of catches everybody up. Did I miss anything in that description of this?
No, I don't think so. I think it's important for people, especially in a players' league, to understand that soft leverage that Jonas does have, it has translated in the past before a lot of times where guys say, I don't want to be here. I do not want to play here. And depending on how hard they are willing to go in terms of pushing that envelope, the teams are not wanting to deal with that. But clearly the Nuggets made the trade for like Darius Arch for Jonas Valanciunas because they expected Jonas to play, because they expected him to be a very important piece of this rotation that we have talked about before. So I will say, not a fun position to play, the backup center position behind Nikola Jokic. So I can understand Jonas's issue potentially with playing that particular role. So look, it is what it is. Nuggets fans have to understand that this is more delicate than I think has kind of been reported on the American side of things, where everybody's saying, oh yeah, no, they're not going to let him go. Well, I don't necessarily think it's that simple. I don't think that, like, usually when guys want something, they get their way. They eventually get their way, even if it takes a little bit of time. So the Nuggets are hoping it kind of goes the other way, where he basically says, okay, cooler heads prevail. The Nuggets kind of give him the opportunity to say, look, if you want to go in a year, we will allow you to go in a year. But for this season, we really need you. That's a thing that I think that they are trying to work through. So it's a tough situation. I don't think that this is an easy one. By the way, who are the agents for Jonas Valanciunas? That is Jeff Schwartz of XL Sports and Michael Tellem. So
hey,
let's keep that in mind.
Hey, who does Jeff Schwartz represent, Ryan?
Only half of the Nuggets organization, including Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. Very, very important and powerful person surrounding the Nuggets.
The thing I want to say is that we do not know Jonas Valanciunas' motivation for going overseas. We don't know that. And I want to make it clear that until we know those reasons, we should not talk about them the way that we were talking about them. This is a major life decision that he's making.
Yeah. Once he leaves, he's gone. Like, he'll never be able to come back.
Probably. And so if that's the case, that's a pretty huge decision. And we don't know if the decision was like, there might be a personal situation that is causing him to need to go there to be closer to overseas, and he's not going back to Lithuania, right? He's going back to, he's going to Greece, but there might be a reason that he is in a position where he needs to. And I don't want to just obliviate over that. I don't want to make it into like, he doesn't want to back up Jokic. We don't know how he feels about that.
Sure.
He hasn't given an interview. Like, we don't know if it's about fit. We don't know if it's about coaching. We don't know anything in that. So that I think this is the reason the ethical stuff, if you want to say like the ethical stuff doesn't matter, Matt, it's about business. You're absolutely right. We as fans, though, get to talk about things in more than one way. Wade says Jonas is being less ethical by not honoring his contract. If there's a personal situation, then sure. But if not, keep him. Okay, but him being unethical by not honoring his contract does not mean it's the ethical thing for you to retain him. Just something to keep in mind. It does not justify your unethical behavior because he's engaging in what you feel is an unethical behavior by not honoring his contract, which I think he should.
Is it an ethical decision to bring back Russell Westbrook? Like, based off of the way that his situation went and how like strong of a star he is in the NBA? I think it would be the ethical decision. That doesn't always make the difference.
Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and even regular season games, you know, the dog days of summer in baseball, can feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet right into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started.
A busy July 4th weekend for the Bucs. Some good news. Ryan Rollins back in the mix.
You are Locked On Bucs, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucs. I'm Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. You can hear me on the Bucs Radio Network. You can find Camille on the Locked On NBA show and the Technical Foul podcast as well. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day, each and every day. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And I mean, speaking of those everydayers too, Camille, it's become regular occurrence. I don't know about you, just bumping into him out and about in everyday life. Caught up with Brian, who is a big time fan yesterday, as you listen to this on a Monday. So shouts to him and to everybody else we've crossed paths with already this summer. But it's been a busy weekend and week, really, for the Bucs. A busy start to free agency. We were gonna basically spend a decent chunk of time, what would you say, talking yourself into working through the merits of assuming Bradley Beal is in fact bought out, waived, and stretched. Can you talk yourself into a fit there? As the Bucs were originally one of those teams linked to him. I think that was a Mark Stein report a couple of days ago, late in the week, as, hey, if Bradley Beal's a free agent, the Bucs are one of those teams that's checked in on him. So we were preparing for that. And then 10, 15 minutes before we start recording is when the news comes that Ryan Rollins has in fact agreed to a multi-year extension. It's going to be more than the minimum as well, although I'm guessing it's going to start at the minimum, the base year, and then get the annual raises from there. But a 3-year, $12 million deal for Ryan Rollins. The third year is a player option, though this wasn't a 1+1. So you got at least 2 years of Ryan Rollins at a great value contract. I mean, if he gives you the performances we saw down the stretch for $3 million a year, you're certainly cooking with gas at that point.
You really are. And again, he's a young player. He's only 23 years old, still has a lot of room to grow potentially here in his game. And we've already seen the flashes of how he fits. Like, I know there was conversations over the weekend too with the Chris Paul rumors about would Chris Paul come to Milwaukee? And I just kept going, I just don't see it. I don't see it. I could understand if the Bucs were having conversations, like, hey, have a conversation. That's good front officing right there to have a conversation. But ultimately for the fit, like, I would much rather have Ryan Rollins in the year of 2025 on the Milwaukee Bucks over a 40-year-old Chris Paul, who we learned, I believe, at Essence Fest is planning for this upcoming season to be his last. So wish him the best, but I think what's best for the Bucs is actually Ryan Rollins to have a younger guard on your roster to take a shot on and see what his growth can be. And plus, I think if they are moving to an offense more focused around Giannis, having more so of a combo guard can do you a bit of good. Someone who won't be upset if the ball's not in his hands 24/7, like Chris Paul is used to. Like, he's a point general. Like, we know he needs the ball in his hand. So the fit next to Giannis, if they want to run the offense this way, wasn't too sure about that. But I am so glad that Ryan Rollins is back on the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking before we started recording that I remain pretty confident, and I think we even said in one of our later shows last week, I'm still very confident he's going to be retained. Even, the qualifying offer gate that went on late in the week too, of people freaking out over that, which I believe was essentially done to basically free up that cap hold and get enough under the cap to work out the Miles Turner signing. You still had early bird rights on him. So I remained pretty confident they were going to retain him. But then you saw more reporting coming out over the weekend of pretty good teams. And we talked about it last week too, of, hey, do the Indiana Pacers even kick the tires on Ryan Rollins? But good teams linked to him, showing interest in him. And, for the Bucs to get him again at that value, and you look at everything that John Horst has done now in this offseason, like, just on the basketball court, like, we can save the discussion as we already had it once, and I'm sure it's going to be popping up all throughout the next 5 years here. But the $22.5 million in dead cap hits for that 5-year period. But on the court, this has been a marvelous offseason so far for John Horst and company.
Given what they had available, yeah, sure. Like I can get some people will look at this roster and still be like, not impressed, not a championship contender, woo, woo, woo. Understandable. I can completely understand feeling that way about the roster, but I think that this roster is well constructed to take that first step in this direction where the offense is really circulating around Giannis. Like you had the question when Brook Lopez signed with the Clippers, which I believe also became official today. Like who is going to take that other big rotation spot because you brought Bobby Portis back, which was needed, I believe. And you go and get Miles Turner, who can do a lot of what Brook Lopez gave you. Plus, he's really good in that mid-range area as well. You bring back your guards that you saw some flashes with last year. You're bringing back your Kevin Porter Jr., who's 25 years old. You're bringing back your Gary Trent Jr., who's 27 years old. And now, of course, you're bringing back Ryan Rollins in that group as well. You re-signed Jericho Sims. You brought Gary Harris on board. You're bringing Taurean Prince back, which I'm still 2 years shocked me a little bit. But for a regular,
again, Camille, the 1+1, it shouldn't shock you.
You know what? You're right. That is the horse special. You are right. But all in all, like you look at the team, like the weakness that I see in the team right now is just that all the guards are kind of small, like all around that 6'3", 6'4" range for the most part. And you're looking at like your wing rotation here, and it's like the only guy you have that's really like 6'6", 6'7", 6'8". You have, Andre Jackson Jr., you got Kuzma, you got Tyler Smith, if you see him more as a small forward over a power forward at this point at 6'9". So like the wing rotation is still a little interesting to me, but I'm happy in the direction of the guards, but just wish they had a little bit more size still on the wing.
The wing is the most interesting part. I mean, they have put themselves in a good spot in the backcourt.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked quite a bit about, well, number one, let's start with Kevin Porter Jr. and his size that he gives you. Not that he's like a 7-foot point guard, but he's got very good wingspan, and I think he's 6'4", 6'5".
Mm-hmm.
You saw how that factored into steals all through last year when he was with the Bucks. Ryan Rollins, as we've talked about quite a bit, has a near 7-foot wingspan. So you feel good in the backcourt, but to your point, it's on the perimeter and those wing players where you a little bit of a blind spot there, that it's pretty much just Taurean Prince. And as you noted, Tyler Smith, which I don't think we have time to get into it on today's show, but certainly as we get deep into Summer League, that's worth keeping an eye on because everybody, I'm sure, started to see some of those Tyler Smith workout highlight videos that were popping up late last week as well. That certainly leaves you intrigued about what type of a step forward he took in the offseason. And, as we said last year, the shot is an NBA shot. He has a knack for being around the ball. So if he can improve overall his ball skills and everything else, then maybe you got something there. So that's going to be an interesting thing to monitor throughout the course of Summer League. But now, as we look at this roster, again, we think Vasa Micic is giving back some money and taking a buyout to go play overseas, but he's still noted on the roster for the Bucks at all the cap sites that we use. So they're currently at 14. That figures to change with the Micic status, and that would take you down to 13 and open up 2 roster spots. The interesting thing is Bogoljub Markovic, and is he going to be on the roster? We saw conflicting reports there. One of the big sells of, he's going to be cheap. Doesn't really matter now that the Bucks made the moves that they did to free up as much room. And that's the same point too for, one of the other conversations that we had annually. And that was, well, do you keep the 15 spot open to save some money up against the tax there and stay under the second apron? That doesn't matter now either. I mean, you could keep it open for flexibility, but I would assume they're going to be at 14 and that Markovic is going to be on the NBA club. So then you're looking at a backcourt rotation of KPJ and Ryan Rollins. Look, we're getting way in front of ourselves, but who would you assume starts there?
Between Kevin Porter Jr. and Rollins? I think they're going to have to earn it in training camp. But but before knowing how the battle goes out, I think it might be Kevin Porter Jr. to start.
That's the point guard. The shooting guard has some depth there as well with one of the names that you noted, and then you feel really good about the front court.